Most of us regard the world in which we live as just somewhere to inhabit, something that we interact with on a physical level. But a lot of quantum science these days is looking at it from a completely different perspective, and that is saying that we are an integral part of the world in which we live. Now, how can that be? And how do we put that into a daily practice? Well, obviously, this is the sort of thing that spiritual philosophies have been looking at for eons. It's the sort of spiritual belief that underlies so many of the global, deeply rooted spiritual belief systems. The fact that we are a part of everything, and everything is a part of us. So the easiest way that I've found to look at this, and to kind of really start to assimilate it and to bring it into a different perspective so that you can really get your head around it and live it, is through using dowsing to access the earth energy, the field of infinite possibility in which we live. Now, earth energy is symbolic of that quantum foam of existence, the quantum foam that continues to come in and out of existence all the time and is affected by observation. Now, when we talk about observation, we're not just saying looking, we're not just saying, well, okay, we'll look at that and something changes. Although our understanding of observation as a human being does have a role in this, it's not just our interaction with that quantum foam that creates the reality in which we live. It appears that consciousness itself is foundational to everything that is. It is part of the quantum foam of infinite possibility, and we too are a part of that quantum foam of infinite possibility. Dowsers have been working with earth energy for centuries, and my mentor, Hamish Miller, was really keen on working with the earth in this way, because really it's called earth energy because it does in fact reflect, or seem to reflect, an aspect of consciousness that is associated with the earth. Now, the way that I look at it is, as I said, it's about the flow of consciousness in our reality, and what we're really dowsing when we're dowsing earth energy, which is a field of energy which is absolutely everywhere, is an aspect of the quantum field that creates absolutely everything. Now, I come at it all from a non-materialist perspective, which means that as far as I'm concerned, and this science backs this up as part of its belief system, is that everything in the material world is created from the quantum foam. It comes up in an instant process, a feedback loop in response to our presence and the presence of other higher energies, and creates the material world, which we then experience. Now, bear in mind in all of this, what I'm doing is talking about this from the perspective that we are a spiritual being within the physical body. And what I'm talking about here is the way that that aspect, that quantum aspect of us as human beings, can actually interact and connect with the field of infinite possibility. Now then, when we start to douse earth energy, what we're looking for is in the first instance is some very basic symbolic shapes. And now you can do this. There are other videos on the channel that show you how to douse the earth energy power center, the most positive and beneficial earth energy power center that you'll find in your home. And to douse it, you look for the radials, straight lines, you look for the lemniscates, the infinity symbols, which you'll always find too. And you can look for the basic spiral itself, of course. That's the first thing that you would do, the vortex of energy that is present. And you can then look for things like the five-pointed star. And the five-pointed star is really significant for each and every one of us, and is the main symbol to really start to interact with, because it represents you. It represents the consciousness of the earth reflecting back how it perceives you in the terms of earth, air, fire, water, spirit. So it's a brilliant place to start. Douse those few symbols, learn how to interact with it, learn what it's saying to you, and move on from that point. The thing is, when people start dowsing earth energy and this field of infinite possibility, they can get a little bit concerned, they can get a little bit freaked out, and they're a little bit worried about what are they going to find, what are they going to open up? Is it a Pandora's box? Well, the thing to remember is that although it's commonly held that there are good and bad earth energy lines, or Leylines as some people call them, mistakenly call them, I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute, the energy itself is not good or bad, right? Now, we can react detrimentally to the energy that's found, and therefore we classify it as, well, that's a bad place to sleep, or that's a bad place to sit. Now that's fair enough, but the energy itself on its own is not bad. What is bad is the way that it interacts with the energy system of the human being. Okay, now that sounds obvious, doesn't it? But think about it, because sometimes it's the most simple things that we actually need to rethink, revisit, in order to actually understand what's going on, especially with the subtle energy stuff. Now the point is, I'm going to say it again, Earth energy as a field of awareness, the field of infinite possibility, in itself is not good or bad. It is completely neutral. However, depending on the energy system of the human being that enters into that space, there can be a detrimental effect. And in that sense, we do say, well, this is really bad for you when we're talking at a human level. But if we're talking about it from a higher perspective, looking at it as a fabric of reality, it is neutral. The interaction, the experience of the human being is what creates the good or bad aspect of it. Now, what does that mean for you as an individual dowser, a newbie dowser, learning to interact with earth energy? Well, the first thing is, you need to be aware that all of the stuff you've learned so far about manifesting, about creating with intent, about opening your heart, about being in resonance with the highest frequency that you can achieve, all of that is completely and utterly applicable to what we're talking about here. Because what we're really doing is starting to live as a part of the fabric of reality and gaining a greater understanding of how our energy interacts with all of the subtle facets of the world that we live in. Now that's actually a substantial difference to just creating things, creating a place of wellness, or even creating well-being. The understanding of how that fits in. How do I fit into the picture? How do I fit into my life? That's what we're looking at. And that's where your real power lies. Not in the ability to manifest. We take it for granted now these days, for surely we do. We must have reached that stage, that reality is created from the individual human being as part of the conscious cosmos. What we're now saying is take control, to a certain extent, talk a little bit about that in a second, of your world, your experience of your life, by understanding how you're an integral part of everything that you experience. And the way to do that is through interacting with earth energy in very logical, simple, gradual steps. Earth energy is different to ley lines. Ley lines can be drawn on a map. They are straight alignments. You can see them, find them almost anywhere. But they do follow alignments, and there's no doubt about it. Churches, sacred sites, all of those sort of things are a part of ley lines. Earth energy is not just lines and alignments. Earth energy, as far as I'm concerned, is the field of awareness in which we live. Now, there's a cognitive psychologist called Donald Hoffman who is making waves in the scientific arena that he works in by suggesting that consciousness itself is fundamental and that there are conscious agents, as he calls them, that contribute to the structure of reality as we find it. What he's talking about is topographical, so shapes, sacred shapes, way beyond our perception. And he's really working with mathematics of quantum physics to kind of come to these conclusions. But his work, and I do suggest that you look into it, Donald Hoffman, is really very, very interesting because it actually aligns so neatly with much of idealist philosophy and ancient spiritual traditions. So, where do we go from here? So what this means really on a day-to-day basis is that we have to accept that we're part of a consciousness that is much bigger than us, much bigger than humanity, certainly much bigger than us as an individual, but that does not mean that we are insignificant, far from it. What it actually means is that in this resonance that we consider to be Earth, we are hugely important because we create the reality, the resonance in which we all live, but we do it one at a time. One reality interacts with another reality, interacts with another reality, interacts with another reality, and so we get the flower of life. This is all knowledge that the ancients knew very, very well, and their sacred sites were designed to harness the energy of the earth, harness earth energy. Now we've lost that knowledge, but what we're trying to do as dowsers, as people that are finding their spiritual true selves and discovering the holistic nature of reality, is to reconnect to that energy, to reconnect to our true power, and to understand it as a resonance of our heart. And so the most important thing that we can do is to be open-hearted in all that we do. So what we're doing deliberately and consciously is creating the next moment as an open-hearted moment, as a moment in which we step to be present, and we also accept that we are in the perfect place at the perfect time.